Welcome back, everyone, to round 7 of the AFL Superkick season 2024. We had a pretty interesting round that just passed, and we head into Anzac Day, or the Anzac Day round. Some teams who, are really desperate for a win, whilst other teams are in some pretty good form. It's good to see as well some of the lower sides like the Vengeance and Is Don Is Good actually, getting a win as well. The Is Don Is Good side actually have notched up 2 wins on the trot. So very exciting. We look at the Goldfest and Vital game first of all this week, and Goldfest who are 4-3, but are pretty much, they're in a struggling position at the moment because they've had a pretty bad loss last week against the Vengeance, whilst Vital, they had a very impressive win last week, and now a 3-3, but, look like that they've got some players in some good form, players like Curnow, who's been pretty consistent, and Harley Reid, the young gun at West Coast, in his first season's looking fantastic. Ugle Hagen, will he return this week? I'm not so sure. It did say he was out personal reasons last week, so we haven't heard much about him this week so far, so he could be back in, maybe he might not be. Vital is hoping that he is, obviously, and Hipwood and Higgins are 2 players as well, who I'd expect to have much better weeks this week. They were a bit quiet last week. For the Goldfest side, Peter Wright returns, but Green is out suspended for his, late bump. The Goldfest will also look to probably Logan McDonald and Banfield to be more accurate, as he 0-4 last week and was quite costly for the team. There really isn't many other players to speak about. A lot of them are in poor form, so not really expecting much from the Goldfest. I'm going to tip Vital by pretty convincing 42 points. They've just got a lot more attacking options. Our next matchup is between Is Don Is Good, Peter Bagunas' team, 2-4, up against the Scorpions, who are 3-3. Scorpions got a pretty low score last week. I think a few players out. Jack Ginnivan, he's one of the shining lights down there. And not Ben King, his brother Max King and Sam Swakowski should return this week, both from injury as well as Cozzy Pickett from his suspension. We're expecting also Charlie Cameron to also, have another good week. He was very good last week, and, the Scorpions will be expecting the same thing again this week. Is Don Is Good. They've got some really good players actually in some decent form. Papley and Amani, both who did well last week, have a very good opportunity again this week against, I think it's, just trying to think who Sydney are playing. They're playing Hawthorn on Sunday. So Papley and Amani playing the Hawks on Sunday. I think there's lots of chances for those two. Ben King, we'll expect him to have a better week against the Eagles. And I think Toby Bedford, he might be one to look for because Toby Green's out. So I think Bedford might get some more chances. And Mitch Georgiadis has kicked like a couple of goals every single week. So he's been a very good pickup, despite the injury troubles he had earlier in the season. In terms of my tip this week, I'm actually going to go for Is Don Is Good just to continue what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. I think they're a bit of a danger side now. Their side's actually looking pretty good on paper and have had a couple of players returning from injuries. So I think 21 points is about the right margin. So Is Don Is Good to get the victory this week. We now look at the Boogie Woogie Sheep, who are 3-3, coming up against the Poatina Pirates, who have had a bit of a dip in the past couple of weeks and now 3-4. I think they've lost the past maybe 2 or 3 games. They were a second only a few weeks ago. So the Poatina Pirates have been sinking as of late. And they're going to really need more from Tex and Langford. I think those 2 boys really need to lift for the Pirates. They are pretty reliant on those 2. And Pel Pepper, who's just returned last week, and Owies are also players that I think are going to need to contribute this week. McInerney as well is one that I'm looking at because he might bob up for 2 against the Hawks. I think a few Sydney players might kick some goals that we, probably are not thinking, and I think McInerney could be one. We look at the Boogie Woogie Sheep side, though, and he's just recruited Lafau from Richmond as a new recruit. He looks really good, quite energetic, and has got a fair bit of talent. Mitch Lewis and Frederick, both players out at the moment through injury. I'm expecting them to, at least one of them, to return this week. And, geez, Jake Waterman, he kicked another bag last week. Can he do it again? He's kicked a couple of big ones in a row, and he's making this sheep side, go from maybe an 85 to 90 point team to all of a sudden kicking, 110, 120 point scores. So I think that's what the sheep want. And Dylan Moore kicked 4 as well. Bobbed up, kicked 4. Does have a tougher opponent this week, so we're not sure we're going to get that same output. And Waitman and Norton also, informed duo, kicked 9 between themselves last week. I don't think they'll probably kick 9 again, but there's no reason why they can't kick another, somewhere between 5 to 7 this week as well against Freo. I just think in this game, the Pirates are just become a little bit disinterested of late. A little bit too focused, on the Hawks there, and he's forgotten about the Pirate ship. The Sheep have really found their mojo, and they will win this one by 36 points. We now look at our penultimate matchup for the round, and that is the 4-2 Bulls, who are firing up, taking on the Doctors Vengeance, who are 1 of 5, had a cracking first win last week over the Goldfest. It was a 10-point victory. The defence held up well on Sunday. And again, the Vengeance are going to be looking for another consistent performance from Mason Cox and Ollie Henry, both kicking multiples, as well as Tyson Stengel and Corey Durden, who played a very nice game for the Blues last week. Funny enough, both those players, as well as Henry, come up against each other. And Bontempelli kicking 3 last week. I think the Doctor's Vengeance is going to ask pretty much the same type of performance from him as well. For the Bulls, though, they've got Baker and Dusty off a 1 week rest, and Dane Zorko has been a bit of a surprise packet, kicking some multiples fairly regularly. And Harry Jones and Jake Riccardi now with the suspensions of Toby Green. I'm expecting both of them to fire. Jones, he's looked really good this season, actually. He's been a very good, valuable pick down the order for the Bulls. And Charlie Dixon also returns after a week of being managed. So, look, this matchup here is going to be, I reckon it's going to be a pretty fiery contest. I think the Bulls and Vengeance are going to go at each other. I do think the Bulls have got a little bit more star power, but the Vengeance, they can definitely be proud of their performances recently. And it wouldn't shock me if the Vengeance caused an upset, but I am going to tip the Bulls in a tight one by 14 points. We have a top-of-the-ladder match of the round with the East Quiche in second. I think they're second, 4-2, coming up against the 5-2 Scorching Stars, who have actually now dropped 2 in a row. But they do have, I think they've got the players to bounce back this week. We start off by looking at Danaher and McCarthy, who I think will be pretty angry at last week's loss. I'm expecting them to bounce back strongly. And also they have a very good Jamie Elliott, who performs exceptionally well on Anzac Day, as well as Brody Mychek. It's a pretty formidable duo there. There should be lots of goalmouth action on Anzac Day. And Callum Brown as well. He's one for the Stars to hope for a bounce back game because Toby Green is out. So Callum Brown, I'm expecting to, he can have at least 5 or 6 shots at goal this week. So it'll be an interesting watch there. For the East Quiche, Shai Bolton, he's been in some really cracking form. He's just had a rest. I can easily see him kicking 2 or 3 goals. Even though they're playing Melbourne, I still think Bolton is good enough to do that. Sam Wicks returned last week after about a month off or so and looked really good, I thought. And he's got another good opportunity this week on Sunday against the Hawks. Sam Sturt as well is another one to watch, seeing that Jai Amos has been concussed. And I don't know about Tabiner. I don't know whether or not he will hold his spot. I think he will. But Sturt's one as well to keep an eye on. While Sam Darcy and McGuinness from Collingwood, I think, are presented with chances as well, providing that McGuinness isn't the sub again. And Jeremy Cameron was goalless last week. I think he was goalless he has to fire up this week. He usually plays well against Carlton, so that's a very big positive there for the Quiche, whilst Bailey Fritsch is also presented with a perfect opportunity against Richmond on Anzac Day Eve. Look, in this game, I just like the Quiche, actually. I just really like the Quiche. It's going to be a tight one. I do think the Stars will keep it tight, but the Quiche will hand the Stars its third loss in a row and win by 6 points. Okay, let's have a look at our BH Cup matchup this week. It is between Minted Mick and the Mongolian Mangoes, both who've had a pretty good history. You know, they've had lots of close games, and look, I think Minted Mick can count himself, a bit unfortunate, because I think Mongolian Mangoes have won a lot of these close matchups. We'll have a look at the Mongolian Mango side first, with Larky and Haywood, I think, predicted to do quite well this week. Especially Haywood. Like Sydney should really turn it on this Sunday, and I think he'll kick 2 or 3 goals. Josh Kelly as well is another one for the Mangoes to look out for. Kicked 3 last week, and can he do that again? Like, he might be called upon to play closer to goal, seeing that Toby Green's out. So he's going to be a good watch. I think he can kick another multiple. And I think it's Hayden McLean, Horn Francis as well. Having lots of opportunities, being able to, cause Minted Mick some problems there. But we'll have a look at the Minted Mick side, and it was Patrick Lipinski last week bobbing up. He was a heroic player, kicking 4 goals last week. And Anzac Day is a perfect opportunity for him again to kick 2 or 3 goals. I can't see why not. If he's playing close to goal, he's going to cause problems. Lafau, an exciting prospect. Minted Mick has just put him into the side as well in the past couple of weeks. He's had his bye. I'm expecting him to get the ball a fair bit. And Max King will return from injury, although he does have a tougher matchup against Port Adelaide away. And players like Jackson and Zorko, as well as the returning Charlie Dixon, cause problems to the Mongolian Mangoes. Look, I think here this is it's a funny game, because I think Minted Mick's gained confidence from last week's win, and I think he is due to get one back on the Mangoes. It's going to be a thriller. It's going to be a 5-point victory to Minted Mick. Okay, let's have a look at who's the best with Fest from the end of round 6 last week. We're going to start off at number 5 with Shai Bolton. Even though he didn't play last week and had the bye, I still feel he's a very deserving nomination there. He's just made the top 5. I expect him, though, to stay in that top 5, because he's kicking 2s and 3s most weeks, and I have noticed he's been more accurate in front of goals this season. So Shai Bolton is number 5. At 4 is another player that didn't play last week, but same sort of thing, has been a match winner, has kicked goals in real quick time, and I feel like he's in really good form, and that's Bailey Fritsch. So he's at 4, and I have, I'm pretty confident that he will hold his top 5 spot. At number 3, though, is Jesse Hogan. He has slipped from 1 to 3, purely because I didn't think his game was very good last week. Yes, he may have kicked a goal or 2, but he was very undisciplined, and I think he was a little bit off last week. In saying that, he's been very lucky to escape suspension and get off an appeal tonight. But I think he will be number 3, and if he's good enough to put in a good performance this week, he may climb back up to that number 1 or 2 spot. At number 2, I have an Eagles player in Jake Waterman, who was in the top 5 last week, but he's at number 2. He is lifting the Eagles and the Sheep into the top 5. He's been absolutely phenomenal in front of goals, and he's probably, in my opinion, the most improved player in the competition. Also helps that Oscar Allen isn't playing and the retirement of Josh Kennedy. So Waterman, he's been an ace for the Eagles and the Sheep. And we look at number 1, and it's Charlie Curnow. 3 goals for, a little bit inaccurate, but geez, he gets so many opportunities, and he really looks dangerous every time he's near the ball. He's, great on his left foot, can snap, can take a massive grab, can also use his teammates fairly well, a little bit like Jesse Hogan. And he's basically, one of the big reasons why the Blues and Vital, had big wins last week. So Charlie Curnow is number 1 with who's the best with Fest. Let's see who will keep their top 5 spot next week. And thanks everyone for listening.